You ever have a moment that feels so surreal, you're not sure if it's actually happening until you're way too far in? For me, it started with a knock at the door at 11:43 p.m. I was already in bed, halfway through an episode of Better Call Saul when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan, my best friend since high school. "Hey, can you do me a huge favor?" I figured it'd be about borrowing my notes again, or needing a ride somewhere, but then he sent the next message. "My brother needs a place to crash tonight. Can he stay with you?" My stomach tensed a little. Not because I didn't like his brother, but because, well, if I'm being honest, I liked his brother too much. Zach. Zach, with the stupid jawline, the football player's shoulders, and the permanent 5 o'clock shadow that somehow made him look older than 22, and also way hotter than any guy should legally be. I hadn't seen him in months. Maybe not since Christmas break, and I hadn't really spoken to him since high school. But still, the thought of him sleeping under my roof, hell, probably in my bed, sent a buzz through me I wasn't proud of. "Sure," I texted back before I could talk myself out of it. 6 minutes later, there was a knock. I opened the door, and there he was. Zach, wearing a black hoodie, gym shorts, and that same stupid cocky smile I remembered too well. "Yo," he said casually, slinging a backpack over one shoulder. "You're a lifesaver, man." "Yeah, no big," I replied, stepping aside to let him in, trying not to stare as he walked past me. He still had that same earthy after-gym smell, mixed with whatever cheap cologne he always used. It hit me like a punch to the chest. He dropped his bag by the couch. "This cool? You can sleep in my bed," I blurted out way too fast. "I'll take the couch." Zach raised an eyebrow. "Bro, I can't kick you out of your own bed." "It's fine," I lied. "Couch is actually more comfortable." "Kinda." He gave me this lazy grin that made my ears burn. "All right, if you say so." I gave him a towel, showed him where everything was, and went to the kitchen to make some tea I didn't even want. I needed something to do with my hands. Anything to stop me from thinking about him undressing in my bathroom right now. I was halfway through sipping the now lukewarm tea when I heard the bathroom door open. I glanced up and froze. Zach was standing there in nothing but briefs. Gray Calvin Kleins that left absolutely nothing to the imagination. His hair was wet, and he was rubbing a towel across his neck. "I forgot to ask," he said casually. "Do you have a charger? My phone's dead." I stared for a second too long. Yeah, it's on the nightstand. Go ahead." "Thanks, man," he said, turning and walking toward my room, his back muscles flexing with every step. I didn't breathe again until I heard the bedroom door click shut. Jesus Christ. I gave it 20 minutes, then turned off the lights, grabbed a blanket, and curled up on the couch. The cushions were lumpy, the pillow was too soft, and I couldn't stop replaying that glimpse of him in my head. I was still wide awake when I heard the door creak open. "Hey," Zach's voice came through the dark. "You awake?" I rolled over, pretending I'd just been dozing off. "Kinda." He stepped into the living room, scratching the back of his neck. "I don't know if this is weird, but I can't sleep." I blinked at him. "Okay." He shrugged. "Your bed's too cold. And I don't know, kinda used to sharing a room, you know?" I didn't know what to say. Then he added, "You mind if I crash here? On the couch?" "There's not really room," I said automatically. "But I guess we could both take the bed?" He nodded, like he'd already considered that. "Cool, yeah, if you're cool with it." I told myself not to overthink it. He was tired. The bed was warmer. It didn't mean anything, but as I followed him into my own room, heart pounding in my chest, I knew I was lying to myself. He was already under the covers when I got there, facing the wall. I climbed in carefully, keeping my body as far away from his as humanly possible. For a while, it was just silence and the faint hum of traffic outside. Then he shifted, and I felt his back brush against mine. I froze, like totally still. My breath hitched, my muscles tensed, and my brain short-circuited with 100 thoughts firing at once. Zach's back had definitely just pressed against mine, bare skin to t-shirt. It could have been accidental. Maybe he was a restless sleeper, Maybe he rolled over without realizing it. But something about the way he stayed there, his body barely touching mine, not quite pulling away, made me think otherwise. I held my breath, pretending to still be asleep. He didn't move. The silence was so thick, I could hear the soft hum of my box fan oscillating, the creak of the wooden bed frame every time either of us shifted, and his breathing. It was slow, even, calm. And then, almost imperceptibly, he moved again, just a couple inches. But now his shoulder was touching mine, his leg brushing against the back of my thigh. Every nerve in my body lit up. What the hell was happening? I wanted to speak, to say something, but my throat was too tight. My heart was hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Then came the thing that really messed me up. Zach exhaled, soft and warm, and whispered, so quiet it was almost a breath, "You awake?" I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. After a beat, he said, "I can't sleep." I waited. He shifted again, closer. Then his hand, slow and deliberate, landed lightly on my waist. Not grabbing, not groping. Just there. I felt his fingers rest over the fabric of my shirt, light enough to make me wonder if I imagined it. But then his thumb moved, grazing back and forth across the cotton like he was testing the water, like he was seeing how far he could go before I reacted. And still I said nothing, because I didn't know what to say. My best friend's brother was in my bed, touching me in a way that felt too intimate, too careful, too intentional to be anything but deliberate. And I didn't want him to stop. I should have rolled over. I should have said, "Dude, what the hell?" Or laughed it off, or moved to the couch. But instead, I stayed frozen, eyes wide open in the dark, heart pounding so loud I swore he could hear it. Zach's hand slid a little lower. His palm rested against my stomach now, still gentle, still not pushing. His fingers curled slightly, and the warmth of his skin bled through the thin fabric. Then he leaned in. I felt his forehead brush against the back of my neck. His breath tickled the hairs there. I swallowed hard. "I used to wonder," he murmured, barely audible. "Back in high school, if you ever thought about me." What? Was I dreaming? Did he just say that? I didn't move. I couldn't. My whole body was on fire. I mean, I didn't know if you were into guys back then, but I kinda hoped you were. My mind was spinning. I hadn't even told Zach I was gay. Not directly. Ethan knew, sure, but I never assumed it got passed along, especially not to the brother who used to barely talk to me, unless he needed a ride or was borrowing a charger. "I've been thinking about this for a while," he whispered. "About you," my skin prickled. "About what it would be like, being close to you like this." And still, I stayed quiet. It wasn't that I didn't want to speak. I just didn't trust myself to say the right thing. Or maybe I didn't want to break the moment, because as wild as this was, as completely out of nowhere as it also felt honest. Like Zach had been carrying this around for a while and finally let it out. Then, slowly, he moved again. His hand slid back up to my waist, and this time, his lips grazed the back of my neck. Barely, like a whisper, and I shivered. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I'm awake," I said softly. Zach stilled. There was a pause, long enough to make me wonder if he was about to freak out. But then I felt him smile against my skin. "I was hoping you were." I rolled over slowly, trying to keep the movement casual, like I wasn't having a minor heart attack under the covers. But when our eyes met, his so close, so dark in the low light, I couldn't play it cool, not anymore. "You seriously meant all that?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Zach looked at me for a long second, and for the first time, he didn't have that cocky half smile. His face was open, honest, kind of vulnerable actually. "Yeah," he said. I wouldn't be in your bed at midnight whispering weird confessions if I didn't. I swallowed hard. This was insane. Zach, the guy I'd crushed on secretly since he was just my best friend's too hot older brother, was lying in my bed, touching my waist, saying he used to hope I liked him. I never even let myself dream this far. I always thought you were straight, I said, almost defensively. I mean, you dated girls. Like, a lot of them. I did, he said, eyes steady. Still liked them. But that doesn't mean I wasn't thinking about guys, too. Doesn't mean I wasn't thinking about you. His hand brushed against my side again, slow and deliberate. But it wasn't just a, hey, you're cute kind of thing, he added. It was the way you talked. The way you looked when you didn't know anyone was watching. I noticed. I felt my face flush. You were watching me? Zach chuckled softly. You really didn't notice? No, I said. I thought you barely acknowledged me most of the time. He sighed. Yeah, because I was trying not to. He shifted a little closer. So close that our foreheads were practically touching now. I used to sit on the porch after football practice, hoping you'd come over to hang with Ethan so I could see you for 5 minutes, he said. How stupid is that? Really stupid, I whispered, because I was doing the same thing. Zach's eyes searched mine, and something changed between us in that second. The tension wasn't nervous anymore. It was charged, like a low hum in the air that pulled us closer without either of us moving. And then he kissed me. It was soft. Careful. Like he was still waiting for me to pull away. But I didn't. I leaned in. His hand moved from my waist to the side of my neck, pulling me in just a little more, and suddenly that careful kiss turned into something deeper. Hungrier. Like we'd both been holding back for way too long, and now neither of us wanted to stop. When we finally broke apart, I was out of breath. My chest was rising and falling like I'd just run a mile. Zach smiled, eyes crinkling. Was that okay? I couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, that was really okay. He nudged his forehead against mine, like a soft headbutt. I'm sorry I waited so long. I didn't know if you'd even be open to it. I shook my head. If I'd known, I wouldn't have waited either. Zach pulled the covers up over us and settled in closer. My arm automatically curled around his waist. He didn't pull away. Instead, he tucked his head into the crook of my shoulder, warm and relaxed like we'd done this 1,000 times before. I'm crashing here every night now, he murmured. I grinned. Your brother's gonna love that, he laughed into my chest. Ethan doesn't need to know everything. We stayed like that, tangled up under the covers, long after the streetlights dimmed and the city outside went quiet. I don't even remember falling asleep. I just remember how natural it felt, with Zach beside me, skin against skin, his breath warm on my neck, and wondering why the hell we hadn't done this sooner. I woke up before him. Barely, just a sliver of sunlight was bleeding through the blinds, casting long streaks of gold across the sheets. For a second, I didn't know where I was. Then I felt the weight drape over my chest. Zach, still sleeping, his head on my shoulder, his arm across my ribs, one leg tangled lazily over mine. His breath was soft and steady, warm against my collarbone. I just laid there, still as a stone, not wanting to ruin it. His skin was warm against mine, and it felt comfortable. Not like a random close or one of those spontaneous nights that turns awkward in the morning. It felt like something we should have done years ago, but the longer I stared at the ceiling, the more my brain started up. What did this mean? Was it just a one-night thing? Did he regret it already? And then, the most nerve-wracking question of all, what the hell was I supposed to say to Ethan? Because, yeah, maybe I could keep it a secret for a while, but eventually my best friend would find out his brother had been in my bed, half naked, whispering about how he used to watch me from the porch. Stop overthinking, Zach mumbled, his voice hoarse and sleepy. I looked down. He was still nestled against me, eyes barely open. Didn't realize I was being that obvious, I muttered. He cracked a lazy smile. You scrunch your eyebrows when you're spiraling. I do not. You do. he said, tightening his grip around me for a second. And you don't have to. We'll figure it out. I blinked. So this isn't just a one-time thing? Zach propped himself up on one elbow. His hair was sticking up in all directions. He looked ridiculously good like that. You think I said all that stuff last night just to bounce this morning? I don't know, I admitted. People do dumb stuff when they're tired or feeling lonely. He gave me a long look, then leaned down and kissed me again. Slower this time. More deliberate. Like he wanted to make a point. When he pulled back, he said, "I'm not people. I'm me. And I'm not going anywhere, unless you want me to." I shook my head. "I don't," he grinned. Good. The moment was weirdly sweet, and kind of sexy in a disheveled morning breath kind of way. But it didn't last long, because just then, a knock hit the front door. Knock, knock, knock. We both froze. Zach's eyes widened. "You think that's... I swear to God if it's Ethan." We scrambled. Zach rolled out of bed and snatched up his hoodie and boxers, practically hopping into them. I grabbed my sweats and sprinted to the living room, trying to rub the sleep off my face. The knock came again, this time followed by a familiar voice. "Yo, it's me. I forgot my charger last night, Ethan." I threw open the door and tried to act casual, like I hadn't just been horizontal with his brother 12 seconds ago. "Hey," I said, voice way too chipper. "Charger's probably in the kitchen." Ethan walked in, hair still damp from a shower, hoodie slung lazily over his shoulder. He paused halfway through the room. "Why does it smell like cologne and deodorant in here?" I forced a smile. Probably me. I didn't shower last night. Trying a new routine. He gave me a weird look, but thankfully didn't press it. As he walked toward the kitchen, I saw Zach creeping out of my room behind him, hoodie halfway zipped, socks in one hand. I gave him a silent look that screamed, "Get back in there," but it was too late. Ethan turned around just in time to catch Zach casually walking into the hallway like this was all totally normal. There was a long pause. Then Ethan said, "Wait, why are you here?" Zach stopped mid-step. I forgot my charger too?" Ethan squinted. "You weren't even here yesterday." Zach shrugged, playing it cool. "Well, I am now." Another pause. Ethan turned to me. Did he stay the night?" I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Zach, God bless him, just stepped forward and said, "Yeah, I stayed. Is that a problem?" Ethan looked between us. Once. Twice. Then he said, "No, I mean, you're both adults. Just maybe not in my best friend's bed next time." He walked into the kitchen like it was no big deal. Zach turned to me, eyes wide. "That went better than expected?" I exhaled, hard. You have no idea. I honestly didn't expect Ethan to be that chill. Sure, he was my best friend. And yeah, we'd shared plenty of late-night convos about life, relationships, and all the dumb stuff in between. But I never in a million years thought I'd be fielding a "your brother just slept in my bed" conversation before coffee. Zach, of course, was unfazed. After Ethan made some sarcastic comment about next time use a sock on the door, Zach just smirked and helped himself to a bowl of cereal like it was Sunday brunch. Me? I stood in the kitchen, holding a mug I hadn't even filled, trying not to pass out. "You guys want eggs or anything?" Ethan asked casually, rummaging through my fridge like it was his. I blinked. "Wait, you're making breakfast?" He shrugged. "Yeah, why not? I didn't eat yet. And apparently, we're all living together now." Zach grinned around a mouthful of cereal. "Chill, bro. One night doesn't make us roommates." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "One night?" Zach hesitated. I winced. Ethan looked at me again, and for a second, there was that older brother giving you the eye vibe. But then he just shook his head and said, "As long as nobody's sneaking into my room at night, I don't care." Zach saluted him with his spoon. No promises, Ethan groaned. Okay, ew. Forget breakfast, I'm out. He grabbed his keys and left, muttering something about needing a coffee that didn't involve family trauma. The door closed behind him, and the silence that followed was way too loud. Zach turned to me, still grinning. Told you he wouldn't murder me. I finally filled my mug and leaned against the counter, exhaling. That went surprisingly well. He stepped closer, resting a hand on my hip. That mean I'm invited back? I looked up at him, heart still pounding from the whole exchange. You never even left. Zach leaned in and kissed me. Quick, soft, but meaningful. I like waking up next to you, he said. Even if your best friend barges in and ruins the vibe. Don't make a habit of it, I warned. At least not until we know what this is. His expression softened. Okay, so what is this? I blinked. I hadn't been ready for that question this early in the morning. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But it's something. He nodded slowly. Something's good. We ended up spending the rest of the morning on the couch, still in half-slept-in clothes, my laptop playing a show we weren't even watching. Zach kept glancing over at me, that quiet, thoughtful look in his eyes, like he was seeing me differently now. Or maybe he always had. By early afternoon, he got a call from his roommate and said he had to go grab something from their place. I'll come back after, he said, pausing by the door. That okay? I looked at him, still unsure if this was all going to vanish in a puff of smoke the second we spent time apart. Yeah, I said, trying not to sound too eager. That's okay. He leaned in and kissed my forehead. That little move, simple, casual, hit me harder than anything else he'd done so far. I'll text you, he said, pulling on his hoodie. And then he was gone. The second the door clicked shut, I just stood there in the middle of the apartment, feeling like the ground under me had shifted in a way I wasn't quite ready for, but also didn't want to change. Something had started, and I had no idea where it was going. Zach didn't text for 6 hours. Now I know that's not a long time. People get busy, they lose track. But when you've just had the most emotionally and physically charged night of your life with someone you never thought would look at you that way, 6 hours feels like 6 weeks. By hour 3, I was fully spiraling. Did he regret it? Was it just a heat of the moment thing for him? Was I an experiment? I tried to distract myself. Cleaned the kitchen, did a load of laundry I didn't even need to do, watched half an episode of a cooking show I didn't care about. Nothing worked. Then, finally, just as the sun started setting, my phone buzzed. Zach. Sorry, had to deal with some stuff. Can I come back tonight? I stared at the screen for a second before typing out, me. Yeah, of course. 5 minutes later, Zach. You want food? I can bring something. Me, pizza? Zach. Done. By the time he showed up, it was dark. He walked in like he'd done it 100 times before, box of pizza in one hand, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. I brought clothes this time, he said with a smirk, and real deodorant. Aren't you proud? Extremely, I said, taking the box from him and placing it on the counter. You planning on moving in? He shrugged. Depends. You got closet space? I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop the smile creeping across my face. We ate on the couch, legs stretched out, box open between us. He told me about his day, how his roommate bailed on rent again, how he nearly got a parking ticket, how his mom called and asked if he was seeing anyone. Did you tell her you were shacking up with her other son's best friend? I teased. He gave me a crooked grin. Nah, I said I was seeing someone cool who likes pizza and makes the worst coffee I've ever tasted. You're lucky you're cute. He leaned closer. I know. There was a moment of quiet after that. Not awkward, just still. Then Zach set down his plate and looked at me, serious all of a sudden. I meant what I said last night, he said. I don't want this to be some random thing that fades out. I nodded slowly. Me neither. He rubbed the back of his neck. I know it's messy, with you being Ethan's best friend and all, but I'd rather deal with the mess than pretend this isn't happening. I looked at him, really looked, and realized how rare it was to feel like someone chose you, fully, openly, even when it was inconvenient. "Okay," I said, "then let's not pretend." He smiled, and for the first time, it felt real, solid. That night, we didn't rush anything. No heat-of-the-moment desperation, just slow touches, quiet laughter, and two people figuring out what it meant to sleep in the same bed now. Not just crash there, but belong there. At one point, sometime after midnight, I turned to him and whispered, "So, are we telling Ethan, or just hoping he never asks again?" Zach groaned and buried his face in my shoulder. "Let's tell him. Eventually. Like, when we're 90. I laughed. "He's gonna know. You left a sock in the kitchen." Zach looked up horrified. "I what?" "Yup. Next to the sink. Super subtle." He groaned again. "We're so screwed." "Maybe," I said, wrapping an arm around him. "But at least we're screwed together." We didn't tell Ethan the next day. Or the next. Or the one after that. We just kind of existed in this weird limbo where Zach was crashing at my place more nights than not, and Ethan either didn't notice or pretended not to. I honestly couldn't tell. He'd come over, joke about how we were becoming domestic, and Zach would fire back with something sarcastic like, "Yeah, your best friend cooks better than you ever have." And I'd just stand there holding a spatula, wondering how the hell I'd ended up living in a sitcom. But the truth was, aside from the anxiety of hiding it all, it felt really good. Zach was, surprisingly, the kind of guy who'd wash the dishes without being asked. He'd remember if I had a deadline and bring me snacks while I worked. He'd fall asleep with a hand on my chest, like he needed to know I was still there. And every time I thought, this is too fast, some part of me whispered, but it feels right. One Friday night, after Zach got back from his shift at the gym, we were lying in bed when he looked at me and said, "You ever think about what this would have been like if we started earlier?" I nodded. "All the time. Like, back when I'd come over and you'd walk around shirtless for no reason?" He laughed. "That wasn't for no reason." "Oh my God, you knew?" He grinned. "Let's just say, if I caught you staring, I didn't exactly stop." I rolled my eyes. "You were such a tease." "Still am," he said, kissing my jaw. "But now, you get the full experience." I shoved him playfully, but before I could respond, there was a knock on the door. And not just any knock. That knock. The quick, familiar rhythm that belonged to one person and one person only. Zach and I looked at each other. "Ethan," we said in unison. Zach sat up, pulling on a hoodie. "I got it. Stay here." "Yeah, that won't make it obvious." He ignored me and went to the door. From the bed, I could hear everything. "Yo." "Hey. You busy?" Kinda." Ethan paused. "Is he here?" I tensed. Zach hesitated. "Yeah." Another pause. Then Ethan said, "Okay, cool. Just wanted to check." I heard his footsteps fading. The door clicked shut a second later. Zach walked back into the room slowly. I looked at him. "So, he knows." Zach nodded, eyes wide. "He definitely knows." I buried my face in my hands. "Oh my God." Zach sat beside me. He didn't sound mad, just, I don't know, kinda resigned. "Should we talk to him?" Zach thought for a second, then said, "Yeah, probably. Tomorrow. Let him process it first." The next day, we met Ethan at a diner down the street. We sat across from him like two kids waiting for detention. He sipped his coffee, not saying anything at first. Finally, he looked at us and said, "So, is this real?" Zach cleared his throat. "Yeah, it is." Ethan nodded slowly. "Okay. And you're not just messing with him? This isn't like some wild phase you're going through?" Zach looked him dead in the eye. "No, I care about him." I swallowed hard, feeling my chest tighten. Ethan stared at us for a long second. then sighed. All right, then I'm happy for you. Just don't be gross around me, okay? Zach laughed. No promises. Ethan rolled his eyes, but he was smiling now. Great. Can't wait to watch my best friend and my brother make hard eyes at each other over pancakes. I reached across the table and stole a fry off his plate. You'll live, he snorted. Barely. And just like that, it was real. Out in the open. No more hiding, no more sneaking around, just me and Zach. And the strangest, happiest version of life I never thought I'd get. Life didn't suddenly turn into a rom-com after that diner. Zach still left wet towels on the floor. I still forgot to buy groceries until we were down to hot sauce and a single egg. Ethan still rolled his eyes whenever we got even a little too comfortable around him. But something shifted. There was this ease to it all now. Like we didn't have to second guess every glance, every touch, every laugh that lingered a second too long. I didn't realize how much weight I'd been carrying, hiding what we had, worrying about every little move, until it was gone. We were just us now. Zach started bringing more of his stuff over. First a toothbrush, then an extra hoodie, then a drawer. Eventually, he just stopped leaving altogether. One night, a couple months in, we were lying in bed, both of us scrolling on our phones, when he broke the silence. You ever think about the future? I glanced at him. Like weekend plans or retirement homes? He smirked. Like us, where this is going. I turned on my side, facing him. All the time. He looked relieved, and maybe a little nervous. I know we didn't plan any of this, but I haven't felt like this before. Not like this. My throat tightened. I set my phone aside. I don't want anyone else, I said quietly. I don't even think I could try. He leaned in, pressing his forehead against mine. Then don't. He kissed me, soft and sure. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a beginning or a question. It felt like something solid, something we'd built. And yeah, it was weird at first. Navigating being boyfriends while also keeping up with Ethan's jokes, our different schedules, the occasional family dinner where we had to dial things back. But we made it work, because the truth is, sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places. A knock on the door, a whispered confession in the dark, a night that starts out like any other but ends up changing everything. Zach wasn't just Ethan's brother anymore. He was my person. And every night I fell asleep next to him, his arms slung over my waist, his breath slow and steady against the back of my neck. I thought about that night he first slipped into my bed, and how he never really left.